So I'm realizing after editing my last video that I survived. And I think I survived this 8.5 month frontier that I haven't been able to transcend. And it started, and I felt feelings from the past of feeling trapped, feeling like I needed to escape. And I know what that pertains to. So then when I felt that way, it started playing out as patterns in my daily life, overlaid on my daily life now that don't actually apply. I'm safe, I'm not trapped, I don't need to escape, I can move about my daily life. But that started coming into play, and then I was feeling fear, and then the fear feeling made me feel really separate from my family, like they were trapping me. But really, a time when I felt really trapped years ago was being overlaid onto this moment now, and then I was creating that pattern now. So I remember in my crisis in January, I was wondering, how did I survive? And so in saying now that I survived, that's big. Saying to myself, I survived, I'm okay, I'm safe, I got through that trauma cycle of that pattern without creating the story that I did before. I remember saying that Jesus must have saved me or something, took over my body and helped me or something. I don't know. And that relates to the homeless man. And then when I did go into that space in the 2 months before I was diagnosed, I did meet a homeless man. So it's all really confusing, and I'm not going to say that I have it figured out right now. I'm just happy to feel embodied as me and like I'm alive and not alone. And I've realized quite a few things, and I don't really know if I have realized them because I forget. It's not something that can be accumulated and then used as a pattern projected onto the next moments, even though I did figure out a few keys that I want to talk to myself about. And I wrote them down. And these keys that I've written down are participation, which resolves some of the separation or feeling like I'm everyone, and so does relationships. And the 4-point awareness that I mentioned, Dion Vimal mentioned, and sharing, not helping, because helping is still doing things to each other, but we can share. Being on this journey together, take care of the moment now and it will generate momentum. Just be joy, communication, and the social fabric and dialogue. And I remember asking Dr. Daniel Fisher when I was taking the CPR training in April in California what he thought about micronutrients. And he said, it's all about relationships. And he didn't seem to really elaborate on the effectiveness or whatever of micronutrients. Who knows? Doesn't matter. But I was wondering about that. But I was seeing, as I went through this the last week or so, it really is about relationships. But being on micronutrients supported me through this crisis like I've never been able to get through it while on the pharmaceuticals. And that's partly because if I'm taking psychopharmaceuticals, by taking those, by doing that gesture towards myself, I'm automatically assuming that I'm a mental patient, even if in my mind and heart I don't feel that I am. I'm doing something to treat myself as if I am. So then when these patterns from post-traumatic stress come back, they're going to be translated into symptoms of mental illness because I'm taking those meds. And I remember feeling really distressed and traumatized in January and taking a Seroquel and literally feeling myself translate from someone in distress from trauma to a mental patient. So, in saying that, taking those meds makes one feel like a mental patient, and when weird stuff happens, when taking those meds, one will automatically translate it into it's something to do with the mental illness. So by not participating in that paradigm, I went through full distress, crisis. It was more subtle because I think the nutrients did a better job of supporting me through it without having those chemicals inside that are going to automatically make my brain associate the distress with it's the mental illness. So I got to take more meds or less meds or change meds. That's what the gesture to deal with the distress is when taking the meds, is take more meds or take less meds. And that makes it so one can't move through all of it day by day, step by step. So with the micronutrients, I didn't automatically translate it. And I think it doesn't get moved through the same way. So when I was in distress in January, and then I took the Seroquel, and then I felt myself morph into a mental patient, my brain felt like it was imploding for 3 days. And I just laid there. Whereas this time, my brain was confused, my brain was distressed, there was pain in my body, but I still was living my life. So then I was able to meet each moment and figure things out in the moments walking through life, as opposed to laying in bed and just my brain imploding because I'm not facing the daily moments and allowing the daily moments with the help of people around me to move me through it. And I feel that's probably what the open dialogue approach does somewhat. I don't know a ton about it, but if somebody's in a crisis, open dialogue people who are trained, 2 of them will come in, sit with the whole family and the person in distress to help to dialogue in order to mend that person's social fabric. So I feel like with the help of micronutrients, I was able to go through this process of daily life, communicating with people a bit, having my brain do some weird stuff for sure, and it wasn't fun. Distress and crisis is not fun, but I was able to get through it. Day by day, moment by moment, allowing it to resolve itself, not needing to sit down with people outside and have them help to reorganize the family. But I think the universe can do that too. But oftentimes we do need people to come in and mediate. But I feel like the process I've gone through and talking with myself all this time and not believing what I say, my mind is usually pretty silent, but there were some things that came to mind that were scary thoughts that I was going to die and things. But since I've worked all this time in dialogue with myself and building a relationship with myself that I don't believe what I say, if I don't believe what I say out loud to myself on video, I'm not really going to believe that much of these subtle, scary thoughts that pop into my mind. So the self-dialogue is also a process of deconditioning the brain from believing every little sound inside of it, every little bit of chatter. So I was able to still function through life and allow those bits of chatter to come up, and they're kind of scary, sure, but I didn't believe them. And then by believing them, cower in the corner in fear, which is a gesture, which is a action of believing that subtle whatever in my mind. Sometimes I would sit still with it and be with it and allow it to move instead of making it move me in certain ways that constitute some kind of embodied action that shows that I believe what this thought says. A lot of it is thought. And I've done Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now thing, and most thoughts don't operate most of the time, but there was this period of 10 days where there were some freaky thoughts coming up, and subtle, and not a ton, but very painful. And I feel like perhaps the micronutrients were able to support me through that, because I have the right nutrition, I have the right molecules in my body and vitamins and minerals to move through the day and not have a chemical come in and cloud my perception and almost guarantee that when something scary comes in, I'm going to believe it, because I'm going to think that I am this person with a mental illness and I should be afraid of myself and then run from myself or something. And part of it is listening with total attention. And that's something that I was listening to on a Krishnamurti talk while I was falling asleep. He's talking with Dr. Alan W. Anderson, and it's a conversation called The Art of Listening. I think it was talk 10. And he talks about listening with total attention. And I feel that I paid total attention to these subtle thoughts that were scaring me. Partial attention would be a scary thought comes up and I run and hide in the corner because I'm trying to escape it. Total attention is being with it and being with the pain of it, allowing it to be there, not running from it, and allowing it to do what it needs to do, but not change what I'm doing in daily life. So by having these things come up that aren't congruent with daily life, surrendering to them, not doing something about them, because they're thoughts, they're subtle. They're not real, they're not here, they're not now. But if I do an action or a behavior or move like they are real and show in an embodied way that they are scaring me, then I'm saying that they're real. But by still going about my daily life, I'm denying those things through my embodiment. So a different thing would be being afraid, then getting more afraid, then more afraid, and then eventually ending up in the psych ward. But if I'm able to be with that fear and still go about the day, that energy is not accumulating to move me into going into the psych ward. Or by not behaving in certain ways, it's there, but I'm not allowing it to take me over. And it's really complicated. I'm not saying I recommend this process to people per se. It's really challenging, and I'm not saying it's over, because now I feel there will be some conversations and drama to have, which will reaffirm the level that I'm at, which is good. I'm at the level of my ego self, and I'm happy to be there. It's a lot more congruent than feeling like a homeless person on the street when I'm not a homeless person on the street right now. I'm wondering too if the homeless person on the street thing has anything to do with how many of them self-direct and medicate with something of their choice as opposed to psychopharmaceuticals. And that's something that I've done, is I've self-directed, and now I'm choosing to support myself with micronutrients as opposed to psychopharmaceuticals. So in that way, I am like a homeless person, because I'm not taking the stuff that medical authority would have me take. That's a little bit of a leap, but I'm wondering why. And then feeling like I survived, my brain might want to know, well, how does this survival mechanism work? I don't know if I want to know that right now, brain.